Win big in 2023 with Team Sync from RotoBaller. Import your fantasy teams and sync your leagues. Get customized tools and tailored advice for your specific rosters and scoring settings, including live recommendations for the live draft assistant, free agent finder, and lineup optimizer. Sync an unlimited amount of NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL fantasy teams from all of the major fantasy platforms. Get a discount on any premium pass using my promo code Knuckler, KNUCKLER, one who throws knuckleballs. Just visit rotoballer.com/radio. Makes a great gift. Start rotoballing like a boss. And what's up, everybody? This is episode 104 of RotoBaller's official MMA podcast. Tab that. I am Brady Grove. You can follow me on Twitter at RotoBrady. Follow, like, and subscribe. Leave positive comments and reviews for this podcast on Facebook at Tap That MMA Podcast and YouTube at Tap That MMA Podcast. I make picks on Twitter for things coming up this week, like PFL 7, the playoffs, 1, Fight Night 13, LFA, Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz. The Contender Series is coming up this upcoming Tuesday. And this weekend we have UFC Nashville. The card is kicking off at 6 p.m. on Saturday. I'll be doing the chat a little bit earlier. I'm going to a wedding on Saturday, so I'm going to get that in the early afternoon in the RotoBaller MMA Discord. With me tonight to talk everything mixed martial arts and a little bit of UFC Nashville, frequent guest co-host on this very podcast. Give it up for Connor Bones Slone. Connor, how's it going?
Hey, doing pretty good, man. Thank you for having me on again. I'm definitely excited to talk about what happened over the weekend. It was quite a weekend of fights, wasn't it?
Dude, what was your favorite result? Because, like, Gaethje and Poirier ended with such an exclamation point, but I almost, like, as good of a finish as it was, I kind of felt robbed. I was expecting that to be a 3+ round war, and there was a lot of good finishes on the night.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely would have preferred if Poirier Gaethje was a little bit more, longer and two-sided. I'd love another war from them, but I mean, Gaethje just, you can't fault him for hitting a shot like that. It was definitely amazing. I'm also a huge Poirier fan, so I may be a little bit biased there. But personally, I think the best finish on the card was Derek Lewis throwing some bullshit and taking off his pants.
Dude, it's like, it's so unexpected from the flying knee, but like when I saw it, I was like, damn, that felt early. Like it seemed like, I mean, that's how flying knees tend to go that start off a fight. You're always supposed to be prepared. It was just like, he decided to throw it. I'm more surprised, like the vertical that he was actually able to get, like surprising amount of momentum and athleticism. He does look to be in way better shape since he cut out sparkling water.
I think he started sparkling water, cut out root beer.
Oh, okay.
I think that's what it was.
Cut out root beer. Who is this dude?
No, he looked in such good shape, and he's definitely thrown some switch kicks and flying knees before, but he's never landed one clean. So it was nice for him to get a nice win there.
Great finishes too from Kevin Holland, Gabriel Bonfim, Roman Kopylov had a great finish. Jake Matthews, after he almost got the body kick knockout that Darius Flowers played off like a ball shot. Bobby Green gets an arm triangle choke in a fight that, ended up being kind of a bummer. I don't know what you thought. Pereira and Yan. All right, so give me your take on Bobby Green and Tony Ferguson, and then I want to talk what you thought about the decision in the co-main event.
Yeah, I mean, Bobby Green, Tony Ferguson, that was just sad to see, honestly, because I think everyone listening knows that Tony Ferguson in his prime would have mauled him, and it would not have been pretty. And then said we have Bobby pretty much picking him apart and subbing him. Tony is definitely not one to get subbed, and Bobby Green is not one to sub people. So kind of, just tough to watch. I hope Tony hangs it up. He doesn't know us anything else. But, I mean, on the flip side, good win from Bobby Green. He seems to be improving little by little, so hopefully he can get another exciting fight here soon.
So who did you think won that fight in the co-main event? Split decision. Alex Pereira gets the win in his move up to light heavyweight over Jan Blachowicz. It was kind of what I said, on the podcast last week, that I thought Jan was going to follow the Izzy playbook. I thought it would just get executed a little worse because Alex Pereira is a bigger dude and a better kickboxer. and able to keep Jan at a better distance. But watching that fight, I don't know. I'd have to go back and rewatch it to give an exact scorecard, but it was a fight that felt really close. And I felt like Pereira missed a lot of opportunities to do more damage.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. I think I definitely need to go rewatch the second round specifically. I thought the first round was clear for Blachowicz and third was pretty clear for Pereira, even if it was so clear for Pereira because his gas tank held up. I do find it interesting how Blachowicz was one of the really only fighters on the card that seemed to really suffer from the altitude, which was not what we saw for Usman and Leon too. So it was nice to see that, some fighters improve their gas tanks, but man, Blachowicz just looked dead after the first round. I mean, it's really hard to give him a win when he just looks so tired and defeated, even if he's landing some shots and going for takedowns. Ferrer was just much fresher. He was landing the cleaner shots, I think, for most of the fight, but obviously he was kind of lacking in the grappling department.
And a fight that we were supposed to see on this card was Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus Michel Pereira. Michel Pereira misses weight. And it sparks a lot of debate about a few things that, one, what should be done to Pereira in this event? For being the guy that doesn't make weight in the lead up to a big fight on a pay-per-view card. And the other question is Stephen Wonderboy Thompson getting paid for this?
Yeah, I mean, Michel Pereira he really missed the boat on this one. I mean, this could have been his coming out party. He's fighting one of the legends in the sport who, is a little bit over the hump. He's still obviously an amazing fighter. So it would have been an easy win by any means. But if he did manage to get a win, boom, he's top five right there, one more fight away from a title. So he really screwed up. And I think the way that they penalize them now is a good start, but not really. You can't really I think they should probably take more money from them. And I've seen some people even say, just take a point from them when the fight starts. So they're just down a point. And I mean, I think if you took maybe 40% of their earnings and also and gave that to their opponent, obviously, and then also took a point at the beginning of the fight, it's really going to deter people from doing that, knowing that it could really be affecting the fight outcome.
I agree, and I guess I like the point on the fight outcome, but like it's still, even when a guy like gets kicked in the balls or poked in the eye, or there's a cage grab at a pivotal point in the fight, it's like the point doesn't even really compensate you for what has been lost. And then on the same time, like when you take money away from the fighters who miss weight, you got to question like what incentive do they have to even make this fight happen, and not to try to figure something else out for themselves. It's I don't know. It's like it's weird because I feel like this question somehow is like weirdly fresh. Like this has not been a hot point of debate for that long, it seems. Even though it's something that's right there in front of us.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, ideally, the UFC would figure out a way to get rid of weight cutting entirely because that's just probably the worst aspect of the sport. I think one, they do a good job with hydration tests. Well, they have a good idea with hydration tests, but I think there's some, things that go on behind closed doors that make that kind of sketchy process. But I don't dislike the idea of hydration tests, and I don't really know the one answer that there could be to weigh-ins, but it'd definitely be more fun if nobody was cutting weight, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, and you'd think that it'd be in their best interest to do that too, if you can find a way to make, the fight still, easy to market to people, championship wise, because why would you want to plan a pay-per-view event where some of the big fights might not even happen? Like in this case.
And also, it would just be so much better in terms of longevity for the fighters. Those weight cuts are brutal, but I guess it's not something that's going to change anytime soon, but it would be pretty cool if it did.
And so is there any other MMA news from the last few weeks that we haven't gotten to talk about? I know like Francis versus Tyson got announced, I think, in that span of time. Francis Ngannou is only out there doing crazy things in way less time than I thought it would take him to get these things done in. But and there's Saudi money behind that fight. There's been a lot of fighters on the move. There's the whole MVP free agency thing, and the chaos that happened that one day with Bellator, where it seemed like everybody was a free agent for a second due to like a technical glitch.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of speculation that either Bellator is buying PFL or PFL is buying Bellator. I think it would make more sense if PFL was buying Bellator because correct me if I'm wrong and just make sure who's ever listening, double check me here, but I'm pretty sure if you go to the fighter roster, you can see PFL fighters on the website because they're um, on Fight Pass. I'm not 100% sure about that, but that would make sense then as to why all the Bellator fighters were put on the roster if it's true that PFL might be buying them. But I don't know. I think that would shake things up a lot if PFL acquired Bellator somehow.
Oh, dude, it would make PFL like a very very real threat to the UFC because they have the resources that they have behind them. I love a lot of the approaches they've done, marketing wise, to really set themselves apart in a short period of time. The format, though it has its drawbacks, is exciting and incentivizes each fight you're going to be in. They've gotten star power, and then once if you were to acquire the overall quality that's in every single Bellator weight class, it wouldn't be overnight, but like eventually just like what Strikeforce was for a little bit and Pride very seriously for many years there, was like, is this the better organization? I think those questions could arise at some point.
Absolutely. And something else that just got announced a couple hours ago, Amanda Serrano signed with PFL.
Right.
Don't know if you saw that one yet.
In the super fight division.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting.
Oh my God, dude. Her and Jake Paul are like the weirdest superhero duo that the combat sports world has seen. Speaking of which, this Saturday, Jake Paul is the minus 550 favorite, Connor, over Nate Diaz, the plus 350 underdog. What do you think?
Honestly, I do think Nate is a better overall fighter, better boxer, but do you know where the match is? Because I mean, one thing I think about is Nate Diaz gonna get cut up immediately, and what if they stop the fight due to cuts like they did against Masvidal? Because that scar tissue is gonna open in one round.
What was your question? Where is the fight?
Yeah.
Um, let's see. It is in Dallas, Texas, at the American
Okay.
Fine Center.
Yeah, I feel like I remember Texas Commission being kind of part of some controversies with MMA and boxing, but I think when Nate Diaz fought Jorge Masvidal, that was in New York. So hopefully they don't stop the fight from cuts, especially if they're just superficial. If they don't stop the fight from cuts, I mean, I really don't know how to even predict this one. I don't think the odds should be that skewed, but I mean, it's just such a tough thing to predict.
I mean, I'd have to say like Jake Paul by TKO knockout probably is the best value of that fight because what Tommy Fury at least had in beating Jake Paul was size. I don't think Nate Diaz is the type. Like, can you imagine Nate Diaz getting paid a bunch of money and then like to agree to get knocked out and like that just doesn't make any sense. This is a fight that is made because Nate Diaz has only like one psychotic mindset. I wish this fight was in Stockton, California. And I hope nothing too bad happens to Nate on Saturday. It's just like all the momentum would say that like Jake Paul is probably going to win this fight, and this is going to break the bank.
Yeah, I think something that I could definitely imagine Nate Diaz doing. I doubt this would be the case, but offer him a bunch of money to take a dive. He says, "Yeah, let's do it." And then he goes in there, beats the piss out of Jake Paul. That would be legendary.
That would there'd be World Star Hip Hop videos on that night for the next 3 years. This Saturday, UFC Fight Night in Nashville, Tennessee. Those people get crazy. Going to be a lot of bachelorette parties wearing pink cowboy hats in the crowd. 12 fights. Starting off with a flyweight matchup between O'Day Osborne and Azu Almabayev. Sean Woodson versus Dennis Bajuka at featherweight. Jake Hadley back in it again, 10-1 against Cody Durden at flyweight. Billy Quarantillo and Damon Jackson in a featherweight fight. Jeremiah Wells against Carlston Harris at welterweight. At 135, Rayani Barcelos and Kyler Phillips. Lightweight, Ignacio Bahamondes against Ludwig Klein. Tanner Bozer at light heavyweight. This is his last chance against friend of a friend of the podcast, Ryan Phillips of Power Slap, Alexa Kamor, Kevin Tucker, and Diego Lopez in a featherweight matchup. Dustin Jacoby getting his crack at Kennedy and Nchekwu at light heavyweight. The co-main event at strawweight, 9-0, Tatiana Suarez against Jessica Andrade. And the main event, which almost feels like a mercy fight at this point, which is so hard to believe considering what we thought about him such a short period of time ago. Corey Sandhagen against Rob Font at a 140-pound catch weight. Connor, because Connor's here, we're going to start off with the main event. And Corey Sandhagen is the minus 315 favorite. Rob Font, 230 underdog. Dude, before the Aldo loss and the Vera loss, where he still landed over 400 strikes combined, he looked unbeatable. Like the Sergio Pettis, Ricky Simon, Marlon Moraes, and Cody Garbrandt run, it was like Rob Font is going to fight for this title soon. He very well may win it and hold it for a bit. 2 straight losses, but he's gotten a first-round knockout his last time out, April of this year, against Adrian Yanez. Corey Sandhagen on a 2-fight winning streak, a knockout over Song Yadong and a split decision over Marlon Chito Vera. He outstruck Vera 128-58 and got 3 takedowns to none. Had 2 losses, 2 fights that I really think, like, I thought the TJ fight that he did win, and the Jan fight, I do think he lost, but it was a very close statistical fight, and it says a lot because it's hard to out-volume Piotr Jan on the feet. Oh, man. It seems like way too much. It seems like Rob Font is being slept on way too much in this fight. I cannot fault him that heavy for losses to Chito Vera and to Jose Aldo. Sandhagen is and still might be. I have at many points, even through the 2-fight losing streak, through the loss to Sterling, I still believe that on many nights out of the week, Corey Sandhagen is the best bantamweight on earth. And I think Font still has the opportunity to like beat the guy who's the best bantamweight on earth. What do you think about this fight?
I think it's a great matchup. I'm glad they were able to put it together on such short notice. 2 of the best bantamweights fighting. Personally, I think Sandhagen is going to take it, but I definitely agree that the odds are insane. So, I mean, if we look at Rob Font's losses, it's pretty clear that the losses in those cases were due to the power difference. And I'm not saying Corey Sandhagen is not a powerful striker, but he is more of a volume guy. He's more of a stay at range, get his work done kind of guy. So I think Rob Font is going to be very competitive with him on the feet. I do think ultimately Sandhagen is going to have a little too much power for Rob, and he's just going to be landing the more effective, damaging strikes. But I mean, as Rob Font has shown in the past, he's very, very tough. So I think my best betting line here is Sandhagen by decision.
Yeah, I would say Sandhagen by decision too. That is at plus 175, solid value. I think he might outstrike like 175 to 140. I think that those are the numbers we're looking at over 5 rounds.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very closely contested. Rob Font is an amazing boxer. I think Corey has more tools to give him trouble on the feet, and Rob is going to rely a little bit too much on his boxing. But it's a great matchup. Excited to see how it plays out.
This one is pretty staggering odds, too. We got Jessica Andrade against Tatiana Suarez. Suarez, Connor, is the minus 425 favorite. Andrade, the plus 300 underdog. Andrade coming off 2 straight losses to Erin Blanchfield and Yan Xiaonan. Yan knocked her out in the first round. She got subbed in round 2 by Erin Blanchfield. She was on a 3-fight winning streak before that over Cynthia Cavillo, Amanda Lemos, and Lauren Murphy. Tatiana Suarez, undefeated as a pro, born in 1990, has been in the UFC since July of 2016. She has wins over Alexa Grasso, Carla Esparza, Nina Nunes, and Montana De La Rosa. I would be concerned, Connor, if this was still before February of 2023, because her last fight before that was June of 2019. She's still pretty young. She has a dominant win in short time over Montana De La Rosa. Jessica Andrade seems to be on her way down, even though she's actually a year younger. But again, it just seems crazy to have a fighter like Jessica Andrade as a plus 300 underdog against anybody not named Shevchenko.
Yeah, absolutely. No, Andrade is one of my favorite UFC women fighters. So I might be a little bit biased here, but I think Andrade is going to be able to get a knockout. I mean, I just think Tatiana's going to be looking past her a little bit too much and be a little bit too confident. And as we know, Andrade has the power to hurt or put away anyone. So I'm expecting her to correct the course and get a nice finish here.
And by the way, I think Sandhagen ends up winning that fight like 65 to 70 times out of 100 right now. When it comes down
That's fair.
for Suarez, I still think Jessica Andrade can win 35 to 40 of these out of 100, even if she's sliding to the way that people seem to be think that she is. So at plus 300, I think that's just a solid value for a straight up win. If I'm going with a prop on anybody, I'd go Suarez inside the distance, which is a minus 188. That can't be right. Well, I think it's a better value than minus 425. And I think that's how she gets like 2/3 of her wins against Jessica Andrade.
Yeah, it looks like Andrade to win by KO TKO is plus 650. I might throw some money there. We'll see how it goes.
Next up, we got a light heavyweight matchup between Dustin Jacoby, the plus 130 underdog, and Kennedy Nzechukwu minus 155 as the favorite. Connor, it just seems like exactly what I would want them to do to give me Dustin Jacoby as a mild underdog. I think
Absolutely.
that he beat Khalil Roundtree in that fight. I think that a lot of people thought that he beat Khalil Roundtree in that fight. And I thought he just never fight unless he puts someone away in the first round. He never fights a fight that isn't super close and isn't debatable on what. But that's kind of what I like about him always as a mild underdog. I feel like any fight that he's given is like a 50-50 matchup. And Kennedy Nzechukwu, you just got to avoid the finish really with this guy. It's not as good for him when it goes to the judges' scorecards, at least the last time out. He lost a split decision, even out voluming Nikolai Negumereanu. But he is on a 3-fight winning streak against Carl Roberson, Ian Cutelaba, and Devin Clark. He put there was 2 knockouts, 1 submission, 2 finishes in the second round, 1 in the third. Who do you got in this one? The battle of, this is a crazy total reach between these 2 fighters. It's like 159 inches between the reach.
That's crazy. Personally, I'm going with Jacoby here. I think he has better technique and he has more experience and he's going to be able to avoid getting finished. It'll go to the judges' scorecards and he'll edge it a little bit. I do think Jacoby and Khalil Roundtree was closer than people remember, but I'm also a huge Khalil Roundtree fan, so I'm probably a little bit biased there. I do think Jacoby just outworks Kennedy here and gets a nice decision victory.
And now here's the question, because if I'm going to Jacoby plus 130, I think he wins this fight 50, maybe even 55 times out of 100. And Jacoby by decision is plus 270. I love that. The question is, he hasn't been finished in the UFC since like 2012. Does Nzechukwu get the knockout at plus 260 or win this inside the distance at plus 165?
I Personally, I really don't think so. I don't think he's going to be able to hit Jacoby clean. He has a really unusual style. I don't know if unusual is the right word, but he's just not super technical. And I think Jacoby's going to be able to exploit that and avoid the most damaging shots.
It's just Kennedy's so athletic and has such an impressive physique that he poses like very unique problems to a guy who is a really good kickboxer and straight up boxer in Dustin Jacoby.
I'll put it this way: if Khalil Roundtree can't finish you, I'm not thinking Kennedy can finish you.
That is a valid point. And next up, we got Diego Lopez versus Gavin Tucker at featherweight. Lopez, the minus 162 favorite. Gavin Tucker, the plus 136 underdog. Diego Lopez has lost 2 in a row. 2 decisions to Giannis Brito in the Contender Series, and to Mozar Evloev, who took him down 4 times and outstruck him 88 to 37. Gavin Tucker, who is 8 years older, he lost his last time out in a first round knockout. That was March of 2021 against Dan Ige. I can't believe it's been this long since Gavin Tucker's been in the UFC. It seems like I see his name every week. He's just one of those dudes, I guess. And he had a 3-fight winning streak before that, dating back to July of 2019, 2 finishes and a decision. over Sungwoo Choi, Justin James, and Billy Quarantillo. I don't like the lack of activity from Gavin Tucker, but also Diego Lopez hasn't even gotten a win in the UFC, not even in the Contender Series. And granted, the two dudes he fought were Yo Anderson Brito and Movsar Evloev. That's not like an easy stretch for a Contender Series fight in a UFC debut. But I don't really know what to do here. I thought this fight would be more closely handicapped. And I guess you're just betting on the fact that Lopez fought two really tough dudes in the UFC.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing to consider against Evloev, who, is a very, very legit prospect. He took that fight on short notice and he gave him a good fight. He lost, but I don't think the statistics really accurately portray that fight. Lopez had him in some compromising positions and he fought his ass off on short notice. So I'm going Lopez, maybe Lopez by submission. That might be a good one to think about.
Yeah, I'd say Lopez wins this fight like 60 to 65 times out of 100. So I don't know if I like a straight up victor, but Lopez by decision plus 350 and by submission plus 245. That probably is the best value. If you can hear this, hit it. Next up, we got Tanner Boser and Alexa Kamor in a light heavyweight matchup. Tanner Boser is the minus 162 favorite. Alexa Kamor, the plus 136 underdog. Let's just start with Alexa Kamor to see if I'm missing anything. Won his first two fights in the UFC, a second-round knockout over Fabio Charant, who hung around for a little bit, and got a unanimous decision over Justin Ledette back in January of 2020. That was his last win in the UFC. Decision losses in between then to William Knight and Nikolai Negumereanu, who he did land 102 strikes against, and that was a split decision loss. Tanner Boser had a cup of coffee, as people at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network would say, over at the heavyweight division. He took two losses in a row to Andre Arlovski and Ari Latifi after things were looking up for him. He got that knockout over Vince St. Preux. And then two straight losses, one to Rodrigo Nascimento, and then by first round knockout to Ian Cutelaba. Connor, these are two dudes not in a good spot in the UFC. This is a make or break fight. And God, I mean, Alexa's just had so little going for him, at the UFC level over the last couple of years. At least Tanner Boser beat Vince St. Preux. That was a while ago. But he didn't even look good, really, against Rodrigo Nasser. I mean, he landed more volume strikes, but he definitely didn't look good against Ian Cutelaba.
Yeah, this is a tough one, and I think it's do or die for both of them, just like you said. I'm going to give the edge to Boser. I think his experience is really going to come into play. He's had a lot more fights than Alexa, and I think he is going to recognize more urgency in the situation. But it's a tough one.
Yeah, I'm gonna give just a little nod of the cap to Alexa here. I'll say that I think this could be a 50-50 fight. Maybe Alexa only wins 40 out of 100, but at plus 136, I'm going to take a chance on it and say that what I've seen going on with Tanner Boser hasn't been awesome. And it's definitely showed a lack of improvement. Maybe in the time since we've seen Alexa Kamor, he's gotten a little bit better and gotten some things right. So plus 136, I am going to go on that side for this light heavyweight matchup. A lot on the line. And then we got a lightweight matchup between a dude who got a phenomenal finish his last time out, Ignacio Bohemundez against Ludwig Klein. Ignacio is the minus 205 favorite, Klein the plus 170 underdog. Now against so it was against Trey Ogden. He got the unanimous decision, outstruck him 99-42. But he's done nothing but finish people, actually. It was that sick knockout against Roosevelt Robert. That's why it feels super recent to me, because I saw it on the Ultimate Fighter replayed before Roosevelt's fight. But he had two fights in between then. His only loss was to John McDessie by split decision in a fight where he landed 112 strikes. Ignacio has looked really good in his time in the UFC. Nothing really bad to say. He'll have a 3-inch reach advantage over Ludwig Klein, he's nicknamed Mr. Highlight. That's pretty sweet. Coming off a draw against Jai Herbert March this year by majority decision. 2 wins in a row before that. And to solid opponents in Devontae Smith and Mason Jones. His other two losses were a decision to Michael Trezano and an anaconda choke loss to Nate Landwehr. But Ludwig Klein, without a loss since October of 2021, 2 wins in that time over the likes of Jones and Devontae Smith, and a draw against Jai Herbert. I am impressed with what Ludwig Klein is doing, but I don't think that this is enough of a test. I think, what we've already seen against the opponents that Ignacio has fought, I think it surpasses the level that we've seen Ludwig Klein at so far. I think Ignacio wins this by decision. I think he wins it 70 to 75 times out of 100. I think he does it by decision. That's plus 160. What do you think?
Yeah, so I'm not going to disagree with anything you said. I think you made some very good points, but for some reason, my gut is telling me Klein. I don't know what it is. I think he's a scrappy fighter. He's got a little bit more experience in the octagon. I think he's going to pull out a win somehow. I'm going to say Klein by decision.
That, when you feel that, you got to go with it, because those feeling, it's like when we watched the pay-per-view headline by Bisping versus GSP all those years ago, and we were all like, I feel like all 3 belts are going to change hands tonight.
Yeah, that was a great call. I can personally attest that he said that before any of the fights happened. And the only time I've ever even gotten close to a prediction like that was Amanda Nunes knocking out Chris Cyborg. I was pretty much the only person saying, "Oh, you don't know Amanda Nunes. She's going to come in here and show out." And man, did she.
Yeah, no, I remember watching that too. That was a good time. Jesus Christ, remember watching Corey Anderson yell into the camera?
Oh God. And then barking, he was like barking and shit.
Oh God. Next up, we got Kyler Phillips against Raoni Barcelos in a bantamweight matchup. Kyler Phillips is the minus 185 favorite. Raoni Barcelos the plus 154 underdog. There's some weird numbers on these odds this week. Kyler Phillips, winner of 5 of his last 6 fights, all at the UFC and Contender Series level, including wins over Cameron L, Song Yadong, and Marcelo Rojo his last time out. But that was February of 2022. His loss in that time was July of 2021, majority decision to William Paiva, who he outstruck 74 to 51, knocked down once, and got 4 takedowns to 2. Raoni Barcelos will be at a big reach disadvantage, and he is the older of the two. He is the loser of 3 of his last 4 fights, including a loss to Ultimate Fighter semifinalist Timur Valiev, unanimous decision loss to Victor Henry, and he got knocked out in the first round his last time out, January of this year, against Umar Nurmagomedov. A win over Trevin Jones in that span, October of 2022 by decision. He also has wins over the likes of Khalid Taha and Saeed Nurmagomedov. And he also has a win over Kurt Holloway. Raoni Barcelos was a who's who of people that has fought veterans that got inexplicably cut on this season of The Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah, this is a great matchup, honestly. And I'm Kyler Phillips all the way. I think he is a scrapper, and he's tough, and I think he's going to get a nice win here. I'm going Kyler Phillips by knockout.
And it's kind of like the Victor Henry fight, I think, and the Timur fight, I guess. But those 2 fights kind of tell me the story of how this one's going to kind of go with Kyler. I don't think the volume and the striking is going to be that different from the 2, but I think you'll be able to tell the difference by the 2 guys' faces at the end of the fight. I think Kyler Phillips ends up winning this by decision. I think he wins this fight like 65, 70 times out of 100. So minus 185, I'm not crazy about. Phillips by decision plus 165. I will take that.
Yeah, Phillips by decision is definitely a safe bet. For some reason, I'm feeling the knockout, but I think your prediction of a decision is much more likely.
Well, that means something too. Again, when you feel it. You want to talk about one more?
Sure.
Jeremiah Wells and Carlston Harris in a welterweight matchup. Carlston Harris is the plus 110 underdog. Jeremiah Wells, the minus 130 favorite. I'm almost surprised Wells isn't more heavily favored. Let's start with Harris, who is actually the winner of 3 of his last 4. I eat my words. 2 of those wins was a knockout against Impa Kasangane and a unanimous decision victory against Jared Gooden, who he took down 5 times. He did get knocked out in round 1, granted, to the likes of Shavkat Rakhmonov in February of 2022. Jeremiah Wells, on the other hand, come on, internet. Jeremiah Wells. You can still hear me, right? All right, we're back. The internet was briefly down. On to Jeremiah Wells. They're similar in reach, similar in age. Wells, 4-0 at the UFC level since June of 2021. 3 finishes in that time, including a win over Blood Diamond, Warley Alves, and Court McGee. He got a split decision his last time out, April of this year, against Matthew Semelsberger, who he outstruck 36-20 with 6 takedowns. He did get knocked down twice. Connor, what do you think about this fight? I think that Jeremiah Wells, I think that Carlston Harris is actually being underrated. And I'm wondering, this actually seems a little bit more like a pick'em fight to me now that I look at both these guys' resumes.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a close matchup. I am going to lean towards Wells. He's been the hotter fighter recently, and I mean those are some impressive wins. Warley Alves, Court McGee, Matthew Semelsberger. Those are solid wins, even if the Semelsberger one was a decision, the split decision. It was close, but I'm taking Wells here.
I think I'm going to stay away from a prop on this one. I do think that this is a 50-50 fight, though. I'm going Harris plus 110.
Nice. And before I hop off here, Brady, one more thought. So looking forward to UFC 293, they still don't have a main event. Any predictions there?
No, I don't, because I like to watch these things play out. Like the last time I got suckered into this was the whole Khamzat Chimaev Nate Diaz fiasco, which I am a firm believer was never going to be the main event of that pay-per-view. What do you think? What are the rumblings?
Well, apparently Sean Strickland said that the UFC doesn't want him to fight Izzy. I think they're going to try to make an Izzy fight, and I don't understand why it would be Sean Strickland right now, unless Dricus du Plessis finally, changed his mind and was like, "Yeah, I'll take it." I don't know. I think it has to be Izzy. I mean, it's in his hometown, is his home turf, but I don't know. I just hope they get a good one, honestly.
All right, folks, that has been Connor Bones Slone. He's going to hop off now. Connor, thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you, Brady. See you later, man.
All right, folks, we got 5 fights left on the card. Let's hop down to, we've got four fights left. Sweet. Featherweight, Billy Quarantillo against Damon Jackson. Billy Quarantillo, the -175 favorite. Damon Jackson, the +145 underdog. Let's start with Billy Quarantillo. He always seems like a good value each time out, or every other time, because he's 2-2 in his last 4 fights. He landed 100 strikes en route to a 3rd-round knockout over Gabriel Benitez. Got a 2nd-round knockout over Alexander Hernandez December of 2022. The 2 losses in that stretch of time: unanimous decision loss to Shane Burgos, and a 1st-round knockout against Edson Barboza. Damon Jackson, 1-inch reach advantage. I think they're born the same year. He's won 4 of his last 5. He's coming off a 2nd-round knockout loss to Dan Ige in January of this year. He won 4 in a row, though, against Charles Rosa, Camilla Kirk, Dan Argueta, and Pat Sabatini. Billy Quarantillo has proven to be of a certain caliber. It's the wins that he had before the Gavin Tucker loss, too. Gavin Tucker just can throw, too much volume in this close of a fight, and, had the 7 takedowns. But against the likes of Gabriel Benitez, Alexander Hernandez, Billy Quarantillo has proven better. It's a higher tier of violence doer and, skill level of fighter in Shane Burgos and Edson Barboza that Billy Quarantillo hasn't been able to handle. If he can't handle Dan Ige, it's not that Dan Ige or Billy Quarantillo, it's not that I'm saying that either one of them is better than the 2 in any given night, but I think they present a lot of similar challenges for guys of a certain caliber of fighter. Billy Quarantillo, I think, wins this fight like 60 to 65 times out of 100. So maybe Damon Jackson plus 145 is actually the better value. And I think Billy Quarantillo will win this fight by knockout. That's plus 165. Hit it. Next up, we got Cody Durden and Jake Hadley in a flyweight matchup. Hadley, the minus 198 favorite. Durden, the plus 164 underdog. Let's start with Cody Durden. Born in 1991, winner of 3 in a row and 4 of his last 5, with the only loss being a submission loss to Muhammad Makhachev, March of 2022. This guy's remained active. 3 in a row, won a first-round knockout over JP Buys, a unanimous decision victory over Carlos Mota, and an 11 takedown, 56 strike victory over Charles Johnson by unanimous decision his last time out. Now, Jake Hadley, winner of 3 of his last 4, got a second-round submission in the Contender Series of the Ultimate Fighter's Mitch Raposo. His only loss is to Alan Nascimento, which came in a unanimous decision that only saw 2 takedowns and a combined 27 strikes. Then he got 2 straight finishes, the second-round triangle choke victory over Carlos Candelario November of 2022, and a first-round knockout victory over Malcolm Gordon. That was in March of this year. It's like, look, where is Cody Durden? Or where is Jake Hadley on the spectrum of guys like Jimmy Flick, Aori Kaling, Muhammad Makhachev, JP Buys, Charles Johnson? I think he's somewhere along the middle. How far along the middle is going to be the determining factor. Jimmy Flick was, not good in his stretch in the UFC, and he beat Cody Durden. Maybe I'm thinking of that wrong. No, I always mix those two up. It's JP Buys that looked horrible. Charles Johnson has done mostly losing. One of his only 2 victories were over Jimmy Flick and Zolga Zumagulov. You know what? Let's go. Let's not err on the side of the safer bet in Cody Durden in this one. Let's go Jake Hadley, who's the minus 198 favorite. I'm going to go Jake Hadley inside the distance. And we've got that at plus 115. I don't hate that at all. I think Hadley wins this fight, though, like 70 to 75 times out of 100. So Durden at plus 164, maybe the straight up betting, the best betting value. And if you're going Durden, I don't think this is a bad pick either. Durden by decision plus 275. There's a lot of interesting matchups on this card. And this is an interesting one of a guy like Cody Durden who's taken on a lot of prospects, better and worse in their regard than Jake Hadley. Let's see where it falls on the compass on Saturday night. 2 fights left. A featherweight matchup between Sean Woodson and Dennis Buzukja. Buzukja where's the odds are not there. This was a replacement fight. It's not there right now because originally Sean Woodson was fighting Jesse Butler. He was the minus 500 favorite. So let's just talk about Dennis Buzukja. 1-1 in the UFC, and it's only been in the Contender Series. 2 decision victories. His last one was July of 2022. He's 11-2 as a professional, 25 years old, coming in on many straight victories. Starting with really in value with the Contender Series victory over Kylio Romero, then wins in Maverick MMA, UA Warriors, and CFFC. Not against opponents with an impressive record, mind you. Sean Woodson hasn't lost since June of 2020 by Darce choke to Julian Erosa, wins over Terrence McKinney, Kyle Bochniak, Yusuf Zaleo, Colin Anglin, and at a split draw his last time out with Luis Saldana. Okay, Sean Woodson, based off what he has done to everybody else in the UFC besides Luis Saldana and Julian Erosa, Buzukja, very impressed, did okay things in the Contender Series, has been in some reputable organizations. Sean Woodson should win this fight, 85 times out of 100. So Sean Woodson, I think, does that. inside the distance, I would actually go TKO knockout, get the best value there. And last, certainly not least, we're at what will be the first fight of the evening for UFC Nashville. It's a flyweight matchup between Ode Osborne and Asu Almabayev. Is that how it's pronounced? Asu Almabayev. Who is the minus 185 favorite? Ode Osborne, the plus 154 underdog. Let's talk about Ode first. Winner, actually, of 3 of his last 4 fights. Unanimous decision victory over CJ Vergara, a first-round knockout over Zaruk Adashev, and a split decision over Charles Johnson, February of 2023. The only loss in that stretch was a first-round knockout to Tyson Nam, August of 2022. His only losses are to really reputable guys at bantamweight. 2 rock-solid guys in Brian Kelleher and Tyson Nam, and a guy who we all know is a future champion of this division and my favorite fighter in the flyweight division, Manel Starboy Kopp. But overall, for a guy that I usually look out in O'Day as like, damn, when's he going to get it together? He's actually been on a really nice run. Almabayev, we will have to go to Tapology for it. His numbers are not on UFC stats. He's a 17-2 professional, 29 years old, ranked already as the number 46 best flyweight fighter in the world, according to Tapology. He has 11 career wins inside the distance, 3 knockout, 8 submission, 6 wins by decision. He has not lost professionally since April of 2017. Both his losses came in a row. And one of those fights in Fight Nights Global came to Tajir Ulanbekov. The other one came to Mehmed Mamedov and Alesh Pride. He's been in ACB, Fight Nights Global, M1 Challenge, Brave. My God. He is coming off a flyweight win over Kenneth Manigat in Brave CF, November of 2022. Oh, boy. I love the M1 guys. You know that, too. He was the M1 interim flyweight champion before exiting them. O'Day has looked really, really good, though. I mean, you know, he fights in a lot of close fights. What I mean is that to have a 3 out of 4, winning streak in the UFC, and, with the only losses being to reputable guys, and, maybe Vergara and maybe Charles Johnson aren't all that they are cracked up to be, but winning 3 out of 4 in the UFC is still very impressive. But it kills me even too to go back, because Ode Osborne, his win before that was against Jerome Rivera, who we all know that a win against does not carry much weight. Look, I do think also is going to be too well-rounded of a fighter for Ode Osborne. I think he wins this fight like 65 to 70 times out of 100. I don't love minus 185. Maybe I think O'Day is the better value there at plus 154. But, also Azu has won fights mostly inside the distance. And also O'Day has been knocked out in his last 2 losses. I would say, and what was Azu's numbers again? Only 3 of his wins were by knockout. I think he submits O'Day those numbers. Also by submission, plus 275. Hit it. Oh. And folks, that is it for UFC Nashville. You can follow me on Twitter at RotoBrady. That's where I make picks for things like PFL, Bellator, LFA, One, Ryzen, boxing. We got a lot of extra MMA and boxing this weekend, just like we did last weekend. PFL, One, LFA, and Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz. The Contender Series is coming back this Tuesday. We've got Anthony Joshua versus DeLeon White 2 next week. Bellator 298. That's where I make picks for it at RotoBrady. Follow the podcast, like, subscribe, leave positive reviews and comments on Facebook at Tap That MMA Podcast and on YouTube at Tap That MMA Podcast. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or use sticky notes. I find they're helpful for reminders. And let's see, I'll be in the RotoBaller MMA Discord in the early afternoon on Saturday doing the weekly DFS-led sports betting Q&A. Check out for interlude episodes before and after today. I'm recording this one day early because I'm going to be at a rehearsal dinner and a wedding this weekend. Thanks for listening. Have yourselves a great weekend of combat sports. Only a few weeks until college football starts. Have a great night. Peace.